Okay, so we can get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Parent Education Talk on developmental milestones and the importance of play. Thank you for being here today. We're excited to be talking about milestones and answering any questions you may have. We will also be sharing a few slides and pausing throughout for questions, so feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat box at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. And then please stick around at the end. We have Debbie Brunn from Four Families today to share a few resources with you as well. And we can get started. So we can start with introductions. My name is Tina Ali. I'm the parent educator here at ECLC. Next slide.
I am Shelby Clatterbuck, and I'm the Early Learning Specialist here at the Early Childhood Learning Center.
I am Chelsea Lee. I am the School Ready Nurse at ECLC.
And I am Christy E. Karma. I'm an Education Specialist here at ECLC.
Okay, so our objectives for today, we will cover what developmental milestones are, how we can support growth through play, the spectrum of development from ages 2 to 5, and how we monitor this development. Next slide. So what are developmental milestones? They are behaviors or physical skills seen in infants and children as they grow and develop. The milestones are physical, cognitive, language, and social emotional. It is a continuous development and varies from child to child. Every child is different and grows in his or her own unique way. And this is where we see children starting to move from being dependent to independent. So why is it important to learn about developmental milestones? So it's important so that we have appropriate expectations, which promotes a healthier parent-child relationship. It also creates a healthy relationship, which facilitates development. It provides important information to share with your child's pediatrician during checkups. It's good for catching early signs of possible development delays to get your child the help they may need. And then it captures teachable moments in everyday life to enhance all areas of development through play. So where is your child at? So by observing where your child is at in each developmental domain, you can support your child to get to that next level of development. And then I think Christy's can go ahead and start talking about.
Yeah. So how do we support growth through play? So just a quote here, social and emotional development influences a child's self-confidence, empathy, the ability to develop meaningful relationships. And you know, it's so important that we do focus on these social emotional skills at this age. Oftentimes, you know, we want to push those academics, you know, those early reading skills and things like that. But really, these are the lifelong skills that the children will be learning to develop at this age that will take them throughout their life. You know, cooperation, working in groups, having, being able to maintain those emotions that all children feel at this age. So it's really important to develop these social emotional skills. Next slide. So here are the social emotional milestones for ages 2 to 5. So looking at 2-year-olds, you know, this is when our 2-year-olds are starting to imitate others. They imitate what they see their family members doing. They imitate other kiddos their age when they're out. They get excited when other children are around, and they begin to show more independence. You'll hear a lot of, I do it, or I can do it at that age. They also play beside other children. So although they're not interacting my turn, your turn, or doing things like that, they are wanting to be around others, playing beside other children. And then to build on that at age 3, there's a lot of showing affection for friends. That's when you start to see little friendships develop. They do show a range of emotions, which is super typical. So some days you'll have you know, a sweet little angel all day, and then other days your child is not the happiest or friendliest, and that is okay. That's very normal to see a range of emotions at this age. There is that ability to separate from mom and dad, you know, within, you know, a reasonable time of adjustment, especially when going to school at age 3. Maybe they go to preschool for the first time or stay with babysitters. And then there's also that age of where they may get upset with changes in routine, and that's also very typical. 4-year-olds, we're getting a little older now. They enjoy doing new things, cooperating with other children. So that's when you'll start to see more of, let's build this tower together, or let's color this picture together, handing each other materials. So the play is getting a little more connected with others. Then they're becoming more creative. They're having that make-believe play. And then talking about what they like, what their interests are. And they're very self-motivated, so they want to know who has the same interests as they do at that age. And then for the 5-year-olds, that starts to get a little bit more advanced. So they're maybe playing games with rules, simple games, tag, duck, duck, goose, hide and seek, even simple games, pop the pig or Pop the Pirate, all those fun little games that you can take turns. They really like to sing and dance. They like to show off at that age. Look what I can do type things. They're really showing more independence. Sometimes they're demanding and sometimes they're really cooperative. So again, it goes back to that range of emotions that they have. And they like to be with their friends. They like to please their friends. So they want to form those really lasting relationships. Next slide, please. So for social emotional development, the times may change, but the development doesn't change. So as your child's behaviors are often, you'll often find typical behaviors in the different stages of development. Just remember that it doesn't always mean that it's a misbehavior. Children will always save their worst behaviors for their parents. So the people that they know will always love them no matter what. They will save those behaviors for their parents and their family members. Oftentimes you'll send your kid to school and pick them up at the end of the day, and their teacher will say, they had a great day. And you're thinking, what? That's not my child. My child usually is, screaming or upset all day. But it's true, they do save their worst behaviors for their parents and their family members, which again is very typical. Next slide. So how do we get there? So in expectations of reasonable behavior, we need to really recognize our child's progress and really celebrate those big and the little moments. The little moments oftentimes get missed, and we should be aware of that and make sure that we celebrate those as well. So what we need to do in our behaviors when we see our kiddos, we need to praise what we want to see, and we need to ignore what we want to see less of. It's a really hard skill to do. It's not easy, but it does work, and it works with consistency. So as long as we're consistent and we follow through with that, I think that's something really important to show our children that, we're being consistent and we're setting those expectations. If your child's having really great behaviors at home, let them know that you're noticing that. I like how you are playing with your brother, or I like how you are, following my directions when I asked you to clean up. And then if they're doing those really, attention-seeking behaviors, they're trying to really, it's really picking at you, just ignore those. And that's the hardest part about it, is ignoring those bad behaviors, because the more attention you give to those behaviors, the more they're going to do that to get a reaction out of you. So praise what you want to see, ignore what you want to see less of. And then next. So the last 2 slides on here are really just things to remember. Anger and frustration really are typical reactions in children ages 2 to 5, especially to setting limits or when we say no. It can be really difficult for children this age to hear those words, to understand what that means and to understand the why, and then also to control their impulses. Children have a really strong sense of curiosity, so they really want to explore and test boundaries, especially your boundaries for them. So their boundaries, your boundaries, and test the environment that they're living in. Children also this age, they really quickly bounce back and forth between moods. So they'll have those, what I was talking about earlier, one day they'll be really happy, compliant, easy, playful, fun. And the next day it might be a completely different mood and you're thinking, wow, this is a completely different child. And it's definitely a normal part of development and it will get better. Children also learn through play. So just keep in mind, like I was mentioning earlier, play is their work. So rather than expecting them to do, pre-academics or sit down and do workbooks or making them read and things like that, play is their work. So play with them, engaging them in pretend play, talking to them about emotions, talking to them about feelings, and really getting down on the children's level and playing with them. They're very, they like to play with and talk about the things of interest to them. So it's really encouraging for us, instead of sitting down and testing them with flashcards, let's just sit down and talk about what they want to talk about. Let's talk about the bug that we saw in the backyard today, or, the toy that they played with that made a funny sound. And really kind of build their self-esteem and show them, I like that you played with that, or that's cool when we saw that outside. And so I think that's really good to kind of get out what they like to talk about as well. And then I think my last slide, just a few more things to remember, that, through play, children can learn how to deal with difficult situations, setting it up for them, having them anticipate what could happen next, or, work through fun or difficult situations while you're playing. It's natural, and it makes it fun, and it makes it easy for children to learn how to manage behaviors and emotions through difficult situations. Also, following your child's lead, that's kind of what I was just talking about. They're learning, we're learning with them, and following their lead is a great way to help them learn through play. Encouraging turn taking. So this really can start young. You hear a lot of the 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, my turn. And that's totally appropriate, and foster that. You're right, it is your turn, but next, then it's going to be my turn. So just encouraging them to understand the turn taking. And then this is a really good one, offering your child choices. I oftentimes tell my families it is okay to have those choices be what I call adult guided choices. So asking the child, do you want to wear this shirt tomorrow or this shirt tomorrow? And you're holding up 2 choices of, you don't mind which one they're wearing, but they're feeling like, hey, this is cool, I get to choose. Oftentimes I say, do you want to clean up the toys by yourself, or do you want me to help you clean up the toys? So really the toys are going to get cleaned up regardless, but they're getting a choice, and they feel like, oh yeah, I'm empowered, I got to choose what I want to do in that. It helps your child develop confidence. It helps your child develop their ability to make choices and make decisions. Also, trying to avoid asking your child a question unless they really have a choice in the answer. So if it's bedtime, saying, do you want to go to bed now, is opening the door for them to say, no, I don't want to go to bed right now. So making sure that you're asking them or telling them, I understand you're, finishing up your cartoons, but in 2 minutes it is bedtime. So making sure that you're telling them, we're getting ready for bed now, or giving them, again, those adult guided choices. Do you want, 1 minute of cuddling with mommy and daddy, or do you want 1 minute with a story? So they're choosing, and then, it's not opening the door for them to say, oh, no, thanks, I don't want to. So I believe that's my last slide. Does anybody have any questions for play or social emotional development? Okay, I'll turn it over to the next presenter then. Thank you.
Okay, that would be me. Thanks so much, Christy. So I'm going to cover language and communication milestones, and I'll read this quote. The first 3 years of life, when the brain is developing and maturing, is the most intensive period for acquiring speech and language skills. And I bring that point up not to make anybody feel pressure or nervous or guilt, but more to encourage us to take advantage of this time and play with our kids. And you're doing that exactly by being here and watching this and trying to invest in your child. So before I jump into the milestone expectations, I want to talk about language and communication. It doesn't just start at when children start speaking and using words. It's really when they can understand the receptive language and communicate expressive language. And it's so important because it gives us a picture into their cognitive development as well. And it starts at infancy. As a mom or a dad, you see your kids are communicating with you through having a different cry, when they're poopy or when they're hungry or when they're tired, you know your child, and then they start communicating with sounds or pointing. I mean, those are all part of the process. So it's not just once they can start talking. And also, I want to put my nurse hat on really quick and say, if your child is not meeting milestones for language and communication, keep in the back of your mind, you probably want to get their hearing screened first. That would be a big that would be a big trigger for you. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, so next slide, we're going to jump right into our milestones. So 2-year-olds, a 2-year-old can point to things or pictures. And my 1-year-old does this. I mean, she's not necessarily pointing at certain things. She just likes to imitate, right? And when we talk, there's the bunny. They know names of familiar people and body parts. So I tell my older daughter, point to your knee, or they can name everybody in a picture. They can say 2 to 4 words, sentences. So, where is your jacket? In car could be their answer. Or, oh, what's that? When we go on a bunch of walks, snail on wall. They can follow simple instructions. So that could be put the ball down, or chew your food, or try eating with your spoon. They can repeat words that are overheard in conversation. And as we very well know, that could be for better or for worse, right? You start hearing yourself when you have little kids that could start talking. So we've got to be careful, right? And intentional with what we're saying. So, and also, I would say my daughter, when she was 2, would say, when we were reading books, she would repeat the last word of every page I would read. And it was almost like she was just trying to practice what it sounded like in her own mouth and her own tongue. And it was a really cute phase. Okay, 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds can follow instructions with 2 to 3 steps. So get your shoes, come here, and sit down. And sometimes we think our kids just don't listen. And a lot of that could be that they just have been so busy in their play or whatever they were doing that they didn't hear you. So do your best to get eye contact from them before you give them instruction. Or, yeah. Let's see. So they can name familiar things like grandparents, pets, or objects, things that they like, obviously. They can understand words like in or on. So a big thing for us is hide and seek. So where is daddy hiding? Under the blanket, or in the bathroom, or in the closet. They understand, they can say their first name, their age, and their sex. They can ask, when asked, they can name some friends. They can use personal pronouns like I, or me, or we. So they can talk well enough for strangers to understand, and they can hold a 2 to 3 sentence conversation. So that could be like, I'm playing with the ball while swimming in the water. Look, it floats, something silly like that. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So 4-year-old milestones. So 4-year-olds can use some basic grammar like he or she. They can sing songs or poems from memory, like, simply the Itsy Bitsy Spider, or Wheels on the Bus, or my daughter, we read the same stories like 4 times in a row, and she can word for word almost say entire stories, which it blows my mind. So they pick up so much more than we even realized. They love to tell stories. And what my first thought goes to with this is if you've ever taught preschool or kinder classes, and you ask them a question. So for me, it would be hand washing or something like, okay, when do we wash our hands? And everybody raises their hand and you pick on them and they just start saying, well, yesterday, my dog, they just love to talk and tell stories. They're so cute that way. And they can also say their first and last name, hopefully at this age. So 5-year-olds, they speak very clearly. They can tell a simple story using full sentences. They love to sing and dance and are often rule followers. And again, they remind us when we are not following the rules. They can differentiate between what is real and make-believe. So maybe like unicorns. I won't mention anything else around this time of year. They can use future tense correctly. They, so maybe like, Nana is coming over, or Nana's coming over tomorrow, or will be here soon. 5-year-olds can use their first and last name and their address as well. So how to bulk up this milestone? Through play, of course. So we're gonna make this easy, and language and communication, just narrate what you're doing all day long. And it kind of makes you feel like a crazy person, but just talk about and say what you're doing. So whether it's cutting vegetables for dinner. Like, okay, mommy's cutting up the cucumbers. Oh, maybe we should peel it first. Oh, who should sit here? Or, involve them in the things that you're doing, like chores. And you can do that. You can adjust all of these for different ages. Maybe a 2-year-old, you're having them put their play food and stuff at their own little table or at the big table. Or maybe your 5-year-old, you're having them take the silverware and the dinner plates over. Answering their questions, because they're always full of those questions, and maybe we don't always know the answer, and we can look it up and show them it's okay and learn right alongside with them. Playing with friends, I know it's hard right now, but I'm sure there's ways that we can socialize over Zoom or safely distant from other kids, but this so helps kids and encourages their creative play. And they're so fun to watch. Sports, I skipped that one. So sports, this could happen in your home. This could happen watching a sporting event online or on the TV, or you making up your own sports at home, or going in explaining the rules of how that works. It just opens up their mind to new things that they haven't experienced before. And encouraging kids to use words rather than acting out. This happens all the time in my house. I have two little girls, sisters, and inevitably one takes something the other wants, and they'll rip it from their hands, and you have to say, okay, I can see you're frustrated. It helps to name the emotion for them. I see you're frustrated, or that you're angry. Instead of taking that from her, how about you try using your words? And I'll tell you, I've said it so many times. My older daughter now says that to my younger daughter, who can't talk yet, but it's very cute. Expose your child to different stimuli, visiting different places, which you can still do in your car, even if we can't go inside everywhere, but visiting a mall, visiting a grocery, even your everyday things like a grocery store, visiting the zoo, the library, all different things that are talking points for your child to learn new vocabulary. And reading together. So reading is so huge for every age. I mean, even if your child is only hearing the words and they're not even, my older daughter's such a busybody. She won't even sit for a long time and listen to a book, but we tried really hard to still just read to her so that she can hear it while she's playing. And for the younger ones, it helps to connect the words with the pictures or the real life thing, So reading is huge. It's a huge foundation for speech and so many other developmental milestones. And of course, limiting screen time is the fun thing we get to talk about. It's so hard nowadays, I know, with social distancing and school being online. And just do your very best to know that school time screen time is different from, watching movies or shows. But of course, it's a rough time for us all, and we're realistic, but do your best to limit it as much as you can. And I believe next would be Shelby. Or any questions, I'll say. I didn't see anything come up in the chat.
Okay, then the next part of our presentation, we go into cognitive development, and you may have started to notice overlap when we talk about the different milestones in development and supporting our children to their next level of development. In fact, Chelsea's presentation on language development is specifically a part of cognitive development. When we are talking about cognitive development, we are talking about brain development, which is the learning, thinking, problem solving. We like to look at it as we are supporting brain development by helping our children stretch their brains. It's really important that we bring the science into this presentation so you can understand how equipped our young children's brains are to learn. So if you look at the first picture on your left, it is showing that brain development is very rapid in children. So at birth, where there's only 25% of the volume of an adult brain, compared to at 3 years old, it's already at 85% of the volume of an adult brain. looking to the right, that 90% of the child's development in their brain happens before the age of 5. What does this mean? This means that our children's brains are asking to be fed. They're ready and they're active for development. This chart on this slide shows infancy through age 6, and it breaks up different types of developmental domains, showing when that development actually starts. So you can see that the brain development actually starts when they're still in their womb with motor development. And then once they're born at infancy, that brain starts rapidly developing with vision, speech, emotional development, math and logic, social attachment skills, continuing with motor development and with language development. So although an infant isn't talking yet, they're part of the brain that develops the language development skill is developing, and it's developing very rapidly. So we want to, even at infancy, be communicating with our babies because you are helping to support that language development, even if you might not be getting that language feedback right back. This next slide, if I can get it to move, and if you hear a bird in the background, my apologies. This next slide I really like to show to our parents because it shows the difference of the activity in the brain in the very earliest of years. So in a newborn, you see there's dark spots. Those are what we call synapses, and it's where it's triggering information into the brain. If you go ahead to that 9-month, there's a huge difference in the activity that is now happening in a 9-month-old. And then if you look at a 2-year-old, this is where that 85% came in. And the 2-year-old's brain is just completely active and it's wanting to be fed. So when we talk about stretching the child's brain, we're taking this activity that's working inside the brain and we're feeding it. So if you're walking through the market with your 2-year-old in the basket, you want to be talking to them about colors and shapes and fruits and apples. And even though they might not be having this back and forth intelligent conversation with you, their brain is taking that in. It is absorbing it. And then so go back, by age 3, that's when it's 85%. And by age 5, we're at 90%. After that, the brain starts pruning. And so when it starts pruning, it's losing some of that activity or synapses. So that's why you look at the adult brain, and that adult brain, then there's more spaces than in the 2-year-old brain or the 3-year-old brain. So as educators and as parents, you want to take advantage of this brain development and know, even if you have a child that, let's say, is nonverbal, that child's brain is still active. So you want to continue to feed it. So with cognitive or brain development, we also call this concept development. And it's higher order thinking that we support through play and engagement. The 5 points on your left-hand side show us ways that we can intentionally be feeding or stretching this brain through analysis and reasoning. It seems pretty complex that we're even intentionally thinking about analysis and reasoning. But if you look at some of these pictures that I have on the screen, the little girl with the big project on the left-hand side, her little brain has a ton of analysis and reasoning going on with this creation that either she made or her class made, but now she's actually playing with. Anytime you have structural building with Legos or with blocks, there's analysis and reasoning going on. You can support things through prediction and experimentation, even with playing with cars and a track, and how fast a car can go when it goes downhill versus if you're trying to push a car uphill. Creating and brainstorming with your children allows for that part of the brain to be fed that wants to explore. Even when your children are by themselves and they're playing, if you look at those two middle pictures in the middle column of the little boy with his hands on the window and it's raining outside, he is, I would say, looking at that rain, and what is he really thinking? And you can see just in his eyes that his little mind's just going. Same with the little girl on the bottom and the little boy to the right where he's playing with his Legos himself. You can almost see when your child's working on, stacking or sorting or playing with their Barbies or their Legos, their eyebrows go in and they're really analyzing what goes on what and why, even without the prompting. So as parents, we can support that by feeding them questions. And that's when we have open-ended questions that just aren't going to give us a yes or a no, but a question that's going to really expand their thought, where maybe they have to think about it a little bit. And you'll notice as your children get older, and when we're in that 4 to 5 age range, they feed off that communication where you're giving them these thinking questions and you can talk back and forth. You want to integrate concepts into your conversations. Even if you feel that concept is way too advanced for them, you'll see their little minds start to think. And if they start to ask questions, then you know they're ready to explore this concept. Even if you don't feel that concept is something that they can understand at their age, know that they're thinking about that concept in some way, and you're helping to stretch and support that brain. It helps when we can connect these conversations to the real world, to what they're seeing outside. We are in COVID times, we're not seeing a lot of play dates, but you as their parents or their siblings oftentimes are their play partners, going out on walks and going through the nature and talking about the leaves and the changing of seasons. All of those things really stimulate thoughts, and it really encourages our children to start thinking about different things, and they love that relationship building that they're building with mom or dad or a sibling or a grandma or grandpa. This next slide kind of talks about how you have that communication. And I put this first word up here, what is scaffolding? And scaffolding is a way of guiding intentionally our students in their thoughts or in their actions. So if you are just watching your child play or eat snack, they're limited to what their own mind is doing. But if you sit down with them and you start having these back and forth conversations, that play then extends into this huge learning time. We talked about, and I think Christy mentioned it too, we want our children to learn our ABCs and our 1, 2, 3s, but we don't need to put down worksheets in them. We don't need to give them a 10 to 15 minute time during the day where they're going to sit and talk about their ABCs or 1, 2, 3s. If you incorporate that into their play, whether you're doing dramatic play and doing a tea party like the dad in the middle picture, or like the dad in the top left, just during breakfast time. We're at breakfast time, I see fruit on the table. He can talk about colors. They can talk about numbers. They can start doing sorting. They can do a lot of things just in your everyday experiences. Your conversations during book reading. In your middle picture on the top middle column, you have a dad and he's reading to his son. We could read a book from front to back, word for word, or we can engage in that book while we're reading with our child, talking about the different things on the picture, on the pages, allowing our child to predict what's happening in the next page. Oftentimes they have a favorite book. We read the same book over and over again. So that book can have all sorts of conversations that continue day after day. As a parent, we want to prompt this thought process. We also want to provide information. So you prompt a thought process, allow that child to expand, and then you expand and clarify. And then it goes again to that back and forth conversation. We want to encourage and affirm our child's play. We want to recognize and give reinforcement on accomplishments. If you look at the top or the bottom right-hand corner picture in the quote by Jean Piaget, it says, children have real understanding only of that which they invent themselves. So what this means is that children learn best by creating their own knowledge, and they create their own knowledge through play and through things that they're interested in. So going back to the thought of sitting them down for 10 to 15 minutes to work on a worksheet, that's not fun. That's forced learning. Maybe they'll learn that, but if they do it during play while they're having fun, it's more likely that it actually is ingrained in their head. If they work on building Legos or building a creation, those concepts that they learn through that building are more ingrained into their brain, and that concept of, you know, that inventing knowledge on their own. So here's a little bit about the milestones. So you'll, as I said at the very beginning, there's a lot of overlap in our domains of development. So when we talk about social emotional development and where a child's at, we still are talking about brain development. When we're talking about language development and where a child's at, it still has to do with their brain. Same with physical development. So you'll see some overlap here. So with a 2-year-old with their play, they have really simple make-believe games. Oftentimes you see them playing next to someone or next to you versus engaged with you. Then you look at a 3-year-old and you start to see a little bit more of that engagement. Their make-believe becomes a little bit more expanded, and you see the child here who's playing like he's a doctor. Make-believe play lasts through early childhood, and early childhood goes all the way till age 8. And then you still see children doing make-believe, and make-believe is a huge asset to supporting their own development, and especially when they start doing it with other children, because then that supports social emotional growth. Our 4-year-olds will often see engaged with other children, having back and forth conversations. They oftentimes are able to sit and do a puzzle together or play board games, or start to play things that have more rules and that are established with like a beginning and an end as well. And then our 5-year-olds, you can continue through dramatic play, but this slide shows you a little bit of something with motor development, which Tina will be talking about next. But the picture on your right-hand side shows you a person, a body that has at least 6 body parts. When you're looking at the 3-4-year-old, when they start to draw a person or even a circle, oftentimes you might just see like a line and a stick figure and a circle. And then you see that person of, we call it oftentimes self-portrait. So they draw a picture of themselves, and you can see that progression of how they're able to put shapes together and expand out. The 5-year-old on the left-hand side is capable of copying. So they're able to copy a triangle, they're able to copy a circle, where you might see like a 3-year-old, if you ask them to copy a circle, it might just be a scribble. And that concludes our cognitive development. If anyone has any questions on brain development or stretching the brain. If not, then I'll leave it over to Tina to talk about physical development.
Great, thank you, Shelby. So now I'm going to talk to you about how your child moves and their physical milestones. You can see a few of the things, some expectations of 3 and 4 and 5, but we'll get more in depth on the next slide. Okay. So fine motor skills involve the use of strong muscles that control the hands, the fingers, and the thumbs. They help children perform tasks like feeding, buttoning and zipping clothes, writing and drawing. And by age 2, you will be able to see that they are building towers, maybe like 4 blocks or more. They'll be able to make copies of straight lines. And they might be able to start picking one hand. With writing, they probably will still be switching off from hand to hand, but by age 2, you'll see maybe more of a dominant hand. And then by age 3, they will start building towers of 6 or more blocks. They'll be able to copy circles with a pencil or crayon. They'll be able to turn the page one at a time rather than flip through it. And then they'll able to have the tripod grasp. So they'll start using the 3 fingers rather than gripping like this. And then you'll also be able to see a 3-year-old twisting caps off of a jar or twisting the doorknob open and manipulating their zippers and trying to dress and undress. And then by age 4, you'll see your child trying to draw with 2 to 4 body parts using scissors as well, but obviously kid-friendly scissors. They'll start to copy some capital letters, and then they'll be able to pour maybe some beans or their water, start serving themselves, and then cutting with those scissors as well. And then at age 5, they'll probably be able to start drawing someone with 6 body parts. You'll see them printing letters or numbers, and you'll see them copying triangles or other geometric shapes. And then they'll also be able to use a fork or spoon, and sometimes even a table knife. And then our next slide. So how do we support the development of these fine motor skills? We develop them through play. So Pinterest is your best friend. There are so many different ways to support fine motor skills that are fun for your child. If you don't have a Pinterest, I would recommend making one and just typing in fine motor, developmental milestones, activities for young kids. You can even specify your kid's age. So let me go over a few. Fruit Loops are really great to use. I know they're not the healthiest snack, but they're really great for looping. You can make a spaghetti tower using dry spaghetti and putting it into Play-Doh and having your kids make the rainbow. It's also great for sorting, which gets them ready for math. And you can string it with yarn or a shoelace. And you can also use glue to glue the Fruit Loops into like the shape of their name. And then with Play-Doh, that's really great for fine motor because your child is using their fingers to kind of push onto that Play-Doh, and they can roll it into a snake, they can mold it and roll it into tiny balls, or you can use a rolling pin or cookie cutter, or a toothpick, anything you have at home. And then for beading, you can, just like the Fruit Loops, stringing it into yarn and using it as the manipulative to kind of sort or have them kind of pull out or pour. Clothespins are great. There's an activity called Catch a Bug. You can kind of see the image over there where you strip yarn around and you put in some bugs, and you can have your child try to grasp the clothespin and pull out the bug. What else? We have spray bottles. Have them water the plants with a spray bottle or clean the window, or even go outside and spray chalk. And then tweezers and tongs. This is also really great. It's a great fun activity of just having your child pull out, pom-poms or something out of an ice tray. And then scissors, cutting. You can draw lines, squiggly lines, straight lines, and have your child follow along that line. And then their fingers. So you can have them do finger painting or draw the letter of their first name in sand or in shaving cream. So there are a lot of fun activities that really encourage fine motor. So we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so now let's take a look at gross motor skills. Gross motor skills are the big movements that involve your child's arms, legs, and core. By age 2, they should be able to kick a ball forward and are starting to make an attempt to run. By age 3, your toddler will be running pretty well. They can walk up and down stairs with one foot on each step. They'll be able to jump both feet and maybe hop on one foot, pedaling a tricycle, throwing a ball overhand. And then when we move to age 5, we see 4-year-olds catching a bounce ball. They hop and stand one foot for a few seconds, so they'll be able to kind of balance and then able to walk on a straight line. And then by age 5, they are hopping and maybe even able to skip. You'll see your child maybe doing somersaults around the house. They can stand on one foot for 10 seconds, and then they'll be swinging and climbing as well. So let's go on to the next. So how can we support and help our child's gross motor skills? So something that's really fun to do is creating an obstacle course, indoors or outdoors. It's really easy to get your child moving. You can use things around the house, like the couch. You can use string, boxes, cones. You can get creative, and you can have your child help you set it up too. And then you can practice going under, going over, jumping, crawling, skipping, kind of having them follow you. And then you can get involved, and I think children really appreciate that when you're playing with them. And then the next thing is balls and balloons. You can inflate a balloon and try to keep the balloon from touching the floor. Make sure that you're using maybe a bigger ball, beach ball size, so they aren't discouraged if you're using a small ball and they're trying to catch it and it's just not, it's not fun for them. And then dancing is really fun to get them moving, get them in the habit of doing yoga. That's something I really enjoy doing with young kids. There's Cosmic Kids Yoga on YouTube, and she has really great videos, and kids really enjoy that. And then get outside and play, follow the leader, or Simon Says. There's still recreational classes available with the City of Irvine if you feel safe signing up for those organized sports. And then lastly, I just want to say, I know we will probably repeat this a few times, but if you see that your child isn't hitting these milestones, don't panic. Every child is moving at their own pace, and our job is just to help them reach these milestones regardless of how old they are or where they're at now. And yeah, so we can move on to the next slide. And I think I'll hand over to Kelsey.
Yes, for tracking milestones, here's some tools that we recommend. So the ASQ is a developmental questionnaire. And at ECLC, we have our own account and access for this. So if you email Tina or I, our emails, I believe, will be on the last slide, or chelsealee@iusd.org or tinaali@iusd.org. We would be happy to send you this link. Your doctors should also be giving these to you at the major checkups. So, and it goes through, it just really helps track where your child is at. And then DRDP is something that they use in the classroom at ECLC. The CDC website has so many tools for you. There's an app, the CDC Milestone Tracker app. You can download that. There's a checklist that you can print off on the website. There's kind of more of a pamphlet, the Milestones Moments book. Or there's videos. I think the last few slides that Shelby had were actual videos from the CDC website. If you're unsure of what they're asking of you and you wanted to just practice them or try them out at home. And then of course your pediatrician is always a great resource.
So if you're concerned about your child's development, you really do know your child the best. So if they come to school here with us, we see them a few hours a day, but really they spend the majority of their time with you, and you really do know them the best. Just like Chelsea was talking about, completing those developmental checklists, either, on paper or in one of the apps like she was just reviewing. Just so you know, if your concerns are, typical development, or if your concerns are, you seeing a delay in your child. Also, there's the Help Your Child Learn and Grow activities that we reviewed, all those fun different activities that we presented to you through these slides. And then, of course, talk with your pediatrician. They will give you those trackers or those checklists, and they will kind of talk to you about what the next steps are if they're seeing concerns as well. And also sharing concerns with your child's teacher. You know, we as the teachers are here to help, you know, facilitate any type of growth and development. You know, we'll work very closely with you on, you know, telling you, oh, you know what, I've seen your child do that as well, but I'm not concerned because, you know, I've also seen them do this, or, you know, they'll give you ideas on, oh, if you're seeing your child not able to do that at home, this is what we do in school. So maybe you can also do that at home to have your child practice in other ways as well. So your teachers really are there to work with you and help you through this time. We also have our school readiness nurse, Chelsea, on campus. And so she's a great resource if you have any questions or if you're concerned about any of the developmental milestones. And then don't wait, you know, acting early can make a difference. That's why we're all here in early childhood education, because acting early does make such a difference, and we all want to get in there and help as quickly as we can.
And here's some more resources that we have for you. There's a few Instagram accounts or blogs. So those Days with Gray or Busy Toddler. I don't know. A lot of parents are on Instagram, and there's so many helpful activities and just fun ideas to change it up. And also these other websites we find helpful. We have if you need some ideas, feel free to email any of us, and we can give you ASQ handouts, or we have many resources at our fingertips at UCLC. So just let us know.
All right. So we've reached the end of our presentation. If you are interested in looking into our parent resource folder, use your phone camera and kind of just hover it over the QR code, and you'll have access to our resource folder. And then feel free to also take our parent exit survey. We really encourage that, so we know what we're doing and what you guys would like us to do. And then if you have any questions, feel free to email us. We're all really responsive, and we all work together, and we're here for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Debbie Brunn, and she's going to tell us a little bit about For Families. Debbie, you can take it from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me thank the Early Childhood Learning Center for having me speak today. I'll just take a few minutes of your time and kind of let you know about a wonderful city program we have available. The For Families program you may have heard of. It's been around about 30 years, about 32 actually. And I've been the supervisor for about 15 of those years, a little more than that. So happy to tell you about what we do. There's a little bit of the flyers you can see on the screen. We have a backside as well. But let me just tell you a little bit about what we do. So we basically provide resources for Irvine residents for any type of, pretty much anything. I mean, we have a lot of folks that call us for relationship problems. Certainly now during COVID, financial, housing, there's lots of reasons people reach out to us. Could be for parenting. You know, I know all of you have young children. And the goal is to really link our residents with helpful resources where they may not know where to turn. So for people that just are kind of looking for maybe some support resources, we do encourage you to call us. Normally, when we're not in times of a pandemic, we would invite people into the office for a free consultation. As all of you know, City Hall has been closed since March. So we are happy to provide resources over the phone. We can email, that's what we're doing mostly. We've actually created a lot of our resources on separate sheets that we can actually send to you as an attachment in a Word document. And then you can just simply call them. So if you're struggling in your relationship or struggling with certain issues, you know, we encourage you to either call or email us. All that information is on the backside of the flyer. So that's in a nutshell. We reach out to, you know, obviously partners like the IUSD and others. We partner very closely with our police. I actually, again, pre-COVID would ride along with a couple of our officers about 3 days a week, providing mental health outreach services to people that are not in crisis. So once the crisis has happened, and that's sort of how For Families works, right? You have your crisis, you see the police or they get involved, and then they're actually our highest referral source. So they might, you know, respond to a family in need, and they'll give them a little blue form, you know, encouraging them to call us, or the flyer you see here. And then what we do, we're both licensed therapists. There's only 2 of us. So we are, again, we're not here to provide therapy, but we are here to kind of assess the situation, listen to what you have to say. We care about what you have to say, with our overall goal of then connecting you to helpful resources. And then, you can follow up with us if there's questions. We will follow up with you. That's kind of a nutshell of what we do. I can tell you just lastly, we have, I can see a couple minutes left, just some of our top during COVID issues we've been dealing with is financial. I know many people are struggling financially. The city kindly offered through the CARES Act a couple of rental assistance opportunities that have passed. We don't know if that will happen again. Just keep looking if you're in need of that. But we're all kind of stuck with that. We're doing the best we can to help connect people with places that can help financially, but that's a tough one. Obviously, housing and then mental health. Those are our big ones. So that's kind of what we're seeing a lot over in our shop. So again, I encourage you to email or call us. Did you guys want me to share the flyer, or do you want to can they access both sides of it?
I can share it because we're going to send out it in our e-blast. So
Perfect.
I can
Thank you. Perfect.
pass the link to that.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And again, we welcome anyone to call if they'd like to share their concerns with us.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie. And then thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one.